Great to be back with another coffee break with Catsurveys. Today, I'm going to be looking at digital transformation and specifically with one of our partner suppliers, 3D Radar. So I'm delighted to welcome Erik Meum, General Manager for 3D Radar, to this session.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on this coffee break session. I appreciate that.
Appreciate you coming on. So we're going to go through a couple of questions just to give people a bit of a background. Catsurveys have been working with 3D Radar for a lot of years now. Our personal view is that 3D Radar have pretty much transformed the way that we do GPR surveying. So I guess, Erik, where I'd like to take it to start with is digital transformation. It's a key part of us at Catsurveys. It's becoming a hot topic. Just interested to see sort of how you see 3D Radar supporting that journey and transformation over the coming years.
I mean, looking at the past 5 years, most of the let's say environment above surface has definitely been mapped with the lasers and lidars and all that stuff. So now it's really about time to do the same thing with the subsurface. And 3D radar as such is definitely supporting that part in terms of providing any kind of data representation of the subsurface. We're having huge amount of data being collected with wide antenna arrays. So you can basically, rather than using single channel push cards that traditionally has been used in the GPR industry, you can now record large amounts of data covering huge areas in really fast ways, especially looking at GPR antennas that are truly air coupled, where you can just drive at traffic flow speeds and collect while you go, and you can cover miles and miles and miles in really short terms. So that means that you can really get a digital twin of the subsurface as well, which really supports the digital transformation. The step frequency GPR technology is really also supporting the data collection and the digital twin representation of the subsurface, because you can get the really high resolution in the shallow surface and you can get the depth penetration in the same data collection, meaning that you can scan an area only once and you get both the resolution and the depth that you would require to get a proper representation of the subsurface.
We've got a lot of GPR equipment that is ground coupled. We do a number of services that air coupled, if we weren't doing utilities work, would definitely be the right way to go. So I'm interested to see you pick that one out. But I think the other thing, just to support some of what you're saying, the amount of data we can collect, one of our biggest benefits to clients, I think, is that we go to site once, we collect a huge amount of data, but we use the power of your examiner tool to then after examine that data in lots of different ways. So thinking about innovations, I know you can't tell me everything that you're probably thinking about as an organisation, but is there any sort of snippets that you can tell us about what's in the pipeline from 3D Radar over the coming near term?
As a manufacturer and a developer of GPR equipment, we are definitely doing a lot of innovation behind the scenes. But I think in general, the situation with GPR is that the data collection side has been improved over the past years. Like we mentioned, you can now drive at traffic speeds and cover a fairly large area in quite rapid time. The part of the workflow that takes longer is the data processing and the interpretation of the data. And that's kind of the obvious area to make some improvements. So we are, of course, doing a lot of activities related to that, providing software that assists the operator, or even automated software is, of course, the next steps. Having said that, there is a lot of hypes going around with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and everyone wants to kind of build something on top of the GPR softwares as such. We as a manufacturer has a very unique position where we can work with the system all the way from the physical hardware out there and the properties in the data collection through the processing of the data and all the way to the representation and reporting and outputting of the data. So we have a very, very good position to develop solutions that are tailored for our customers and makes it a lot easier to do this analysis part. The very important thing for 3D Radar is that we have to be correct every time. So we need to make sure that the software that is doing assisted or automated processing is correct every time. We do want to find all the pipes in the ground. We do want to make sure that no gas pipes or electrical cables are undetected. So that's a challenge, and it's important that everyone in the industry understands the challenges with these situations. Of course, we're looking into AI and machine learning, but We also believe that there are other, let's say, more traditional approaches in the software that will bring us to results quicker. So we definitely have some interesting things coming up in the software side on the processing and outputting part of our solutions.
Just on that, I mean, it's really good to hear, because I think sometimes we get a bit carried away with the equipment, the new toys that we can play with and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's a really good point that you've made about the examiner capabilities.
Examiner is already a very fast software for processing and analyzing data. We do have a software that is really superior already, but of course we want to make it a lot easier for the practitioners to actually use our equipment, and especially on the data representation side. When you collect miles and miles of data or thousands of square feet, you want to make it very easy to actually understand the data. So that's really one direction we're working on. We are doing other innovative projects as well. We're definitely looking into the area of unmanned vehicles in many different ways. I think some people may have seen some snippets on our LinkedIn page about what we're fiddling around with, but these are things we see coming and things we take seriously, and we are moving forward with these kind of development projects as well. So hopefully we will have some other cool gadgets coming out in the market in not too far future as well.
I'll start getting my my budget proposal out for my boss pretty soon, then hopefully for some cool new toys.
Exactly.
Thank you for that, Erik. If we now move on and think about the change, and I think with this question, it's probably worth broadening this, because obviously, Catsurvey sits in the survey industry. As a manufacturer, you're sitting in the broader GPR industry. So it's not just about, you cover what we do and we use your devices, but you also cover other markets as well. So I guess maybe thinking about broadly across the GPR and survey industry, what do you think is going to need to change, or you see changing to support digital transformation?
What we sometimes are faced with are people being a bit afraid of the unknown. They're a bit afraid of taking new technology, or they're afraid of the changes coming in the industry. And of course, that's something we have to work with all the time and try to persuade people that it's not dangerous. It's quite the opposite. It's actually something that you should embrace and take the opportunity of implementing. It's always kind of scary with the unknowns that are coming in the future, and changing that part is important. We've seen that being the first company doing step frequency technology, we've been facing a lot of customers and potential customers who haven't heard about that kind of GPR technology before, and we've met a lot of people who are skeptic to actually use this kind of technology because they only have been familiar with the impulse-based GPR systems. Another part I see in the survey industry is, like I said, that it's moving from the traditional push cart based single channel 2-dimensional GPR surveys to now requesting and requiring a full 3-dimensional data cube to be acquired, so you can get a full and complete replica of the actual subsurface. And of course, that's a huge change in the information that you are acquiring and bringing to the customers, when you can have a full 3-dimensional data cube and you can have the customer scroll through the data from the top surface and down through the ground, or from the one side or the other side. It gives you a completely different understanding of the conditions below the ground compared to what you get from a 2-dimensional image, really. So that change is significant in terms of the subsurface information you can get.
One of the things that always amazes me is how much granular detail you can get out. And it makes a huge difference, rather than providing a deliverable back to a client that is literally just a 2D drawing, getting into the 3D space and being able to show, even down to, for example, a clear route through congested utilities for laying a new electric cable. Doing that in 3D is much more powerful, because if you try and do it in 2D, you'll just see a drawing which is awash with utility data, but not really be able to visualize that path. And certainly we've used your software to help us be able to present that in a much more easily understandable way to a client, rather than just going, well, here's your CAD drawing with all your data on it, over to you. I guess that also leads us into, with all these great ideas and potential comes some challenges. Be really interested just to get your take on what those big challenges are, in your opinion, how you see it from the manufacturer's perspective.
First of all, we see some of the challenges being that the requests for information from surveys in general are increasing in complexity and in level of details and in what kind of information to be provided. So where a while ago you could manage with just a few pieces of equipment, now the general survey jobs are much more complex and they require a lot more knowledge from the operators to actually provide all the information at a really high quality level. So the competence levels required from the practitioners are actually increasing quite a bit. You need to have people with higher education, with higher knowledge and understanding of the actual subsurface environment and world. So it's a huge challenge to kind of make sure that the practitioners are actually up to speed on how to provide high quality, good results. From our side, it's of course a challenge to make sure that we are equipping you with the right tools to do the correct surveys and get the correct results. It has to be, like I said, it has to be correct every single time you go out there. So for us, it's a challenge to make sure we are staying ahead of technology developments and bringing the right pieces of equipment to you guys, enabling you to actually provide the complex, high quality reports to your end users. It's also a challenge to change the internal workflows with the practitioners and the end customers, because when you bring software into the puzzle, and now with, let's say, processing software, processing capacity being super cheap, you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do before, which also forces you to change the way you're working with the entire survey. So making those changes, that will, of course, always be a challenge. It has been the challenge for the past 50 years and it will be for the next 50 years. It's always changing, right? It's not like digital transformation is happening from 2021 and over to 2022. It's an ongoing process, but it's changing, especially the software and the data handling these days. And like you mentioned in the previous section as well, the way we present and visualize the data for the end users is changing. So now with graphical processors and computers being super cheap, you might not want to use just PDFs and AutoCAD drawings. You might want to send them a three-dimensional cube where they can actually scroll and they can move it around and they can look at the data from different angles and really dive into the details themselves as well. So
the IT side of things is a challenge. I think, you know, not only using your equipment and your software, but some of the other services we provide. I think IT architecture and the like is definitely a challenge. It's very easy to get carried away with all the capabilities of the equipment, but you actually need the processing power and you need a structure that enables that. So that definitely resonates with me. Is there any other last little snippets that you want to throw in there around challenges for us before we close?
As always, it will be a transition period, right? Where you may have to deliver your outputs and your reports to the end customers in several formats before they realize that they can actually go with the newer versions. So I think that might be a little challenge in the transition period to a fully digital representation of the results, but it's absolutely doable. The sooner we can get to the digital world, the better it will be.
Totally agree, Erik. Thank you very much for giving a little bit of insight into your perspective on some of those challenges and obviously the world of GPR. If anyone's interested on our website, and I'm sure on 3D Radars, but you can find out an awful lot about the technology, but also see some great case studies. If anyone is a bit worried about, you know, does this stuff really work as a practitioner managing that service to clients, we've got a lot of very happy clients who are absolutely amazed by what's possible with the 3D radar equipment. So definitely a key advocate, I would say, of that technology. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with 3D radar over the coming years to see how we can sort of crack some of these challenges. So Erik, thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Thanks for having me.